We'd like to start with welcoming Herminio Perez. He is DMD MBA. He received his DMD degree from Rutgers School of Dental Medicine. Dr. Perez serves as the Director of Student Affairs, Diversity, and Inclusion. In addition to his academic and administrative responsibilities, Dr. Perez has several research interests that relate to improving the experience of dental students during their academic years. On the national level, Dr. Perez has been an active member of the American Dental Education Association, the ADEA, and serves as counselor of ADEA, Gay Straight Alliance Section. He is a member of the National Association of Medical Minority Educators and trustee at the Hispanic Dental Association Board of Trustees. He is the co-principal investigator of Creating Awareness in Academic Dentistry, a project funded by the ADEA GIES Foundation. Our second presenter today is Dr. Toni Roucka, and many of you know that she is the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs at USC College of Dentistry, and she is an alumni of this college. She maintains an active nursing license and received her MA in Bioethics from the Medical College of Wisconsin. She is a past president of the American Society for Dental Ethics, ASDE, and a board member of the Integritas Institute for Ethics at USC. She is an active fellow of the American College of Dentists, ACD. She is currently the ACD Secretary-Treasurer for the Illinois section and was recently appointed to a national position as the ASDE liaison to the ACD board. Dr. Frank Moore is the president of the American Society for Dental Ethics and Professor Emeritus of Dentistry at the New York University College of Dentistry. He completed his DBS and pediatric dentistry specialty training at the University of Michigan. Dr. Moore developed ethics and professionalism curricula for dentistry and biomedical researchers. He remains active in graduate teaching and serves as the IRB chairman of the NYU Long Gone Medical Center. This is his third visit to UIC College of Dentistry and his first time to present here. So please join me in welcoming our distinguished speakers today.
Thank you, Rebecca. So as you know, we do have the Integritas series of ethics lectures throughout the year. So this is one of those in the series of lectures. This presentation is actually a pared down version of the presentation that will take place at ADEA on Monday afternoon, 3:30 to 5, I believe is our time. So if you want to learn more about bullying, we will have an expanded version of this talk at ADEA on Monday. So we were lucky enough to be able to put this together for you because we have some of our speakers here with us and they were willing to come in a little bit early and participate for our benefit here at school. So Pamela Zarkowski and Juliet were not able to join us. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so we have no conflicts of interest, just disclose that. So these are the objectives of our presentation. So we want to differentiate between bullying behaviors such as incivility and workplace bullying, horizontal and lateral violence, mobbing and microaggression. We would like to talk about strategies to address bullying behaviors from the view of the bystander as well as the victim. And we will not have time to use the ethical decision-making model really to work through these cases, but we will have a case that we will present and we will ask you to participate in as well. So just so you know, I'm just going to kind of give a brief introduction here and turn it over to people that you don't hear from all the time. So. But just so you know, there isn't a lot of research on bullying in higher education. But we know that it is becoming more and more of a problem because in the academic dean and student affairs world, which we operate in, there is conversation all the time about things that are occurring in various institutions. So it is a problem, not just in dentistry, but in professional schools in general, and in colleges and universities. There have been some high-profile cases, which you've probably heard about in the news, in the higher ed world. And so it is an increasing problem. And so there will be, I'm sure, more statistics to follow. But in the meantime, there really is not much out there. So I thought that I would just share with you some of the statistics on bullying in general. So for grades 6 through 12, this is from the website stopbullying.gov, which is a very robust website. So if you're interested in more information, I would recommend going onto that site. But these statistics show that approximately 30% of students have either been bullied or are bullies, have admitted to being a bully. 71% of students have witnessed bullying in some form or another. And 9 to 15% have been cyberbullied. However, if you're in the LGBTQ population, that rises to 55%. And how often are people bullied? They say 49%, approximately once a month, they're bullied. And where does bullying occur? Well, these days there's really no boundaries anymore for bullying. So when I was a kid, on the playground and things were happening, when you went home, you were kind of safe from being bullied. People wouldn't be able to contact you necessarily. You could avoid them. You had that escape. But nowadays, with social media, as you all know, it's a 24/7 issue. And it's impossible to escape sometimes. So that is something to consider, that it really does affect a lot more people because of that reason. It's much more accessible. The other statistics that we were able to find are what occurs in the workforce. So there's a lot of research on workforce bullying. And this is actually pretty recent data from the Workforce Bullying Survey, actually, 2017. So it's giving us statistics that approximately 19% of American workers are bullied and another 19% witness it. 61% of Americans are aware of abusive conduct in the workplace. And they say that over 60 million Americans are affected by this, which is an unbelievable number. 70% of the perpetrators are men, 60% of targets are women, and Hispanics are the most frequently bullied race. And 61% of bullies are bosses. The majority, 63%, operate independently without any source. And 40% of bully targets are believed to suffer adverse health effects from being bullied. And I'll tell you a personal story when we get to these statistics. So 29% of targets remain silent about their experiences for various reasons, and we'll get into a lot of that later on. 70% of employer reactions are harmful to targets. So when they report an incident, it really goes against them. And so this is why a lot of times these things go unreported. 60% of coworker reactions are also harmful to targets. So when you confide in a coworker, it doesn't necessarily help you. That person may go back and tell the person who you are accusing of being a bully. And so that's not helpful. You can't confide in your coworkers confidently. And to stop it, 65% of targets lose their original jobs. And 77% of Americans support enacting a new law about bullying. Just so you know, bullying is not against the law, but there is legislation in 49 states that protect people against bullying. And 46% report worsening work relationships post-Trump election. I'm not putting politics into it, but I just put this out there because this is what's put on the website. So those are pretty scary statistics. And I can tell you personally, I experienced workforce bullying. And it was in a previous job, not here, a previous institution. And it was really, really significant. And it was insidious. And it wasn't like they were calling names or pushing or shoving or any of the things that you might think about with children. It was more glaring, not answering emails, not responding to things, not supporting efforts, even though they've tasked you with something, and then kind of undermine the process. there are so many ways to bully somebody, and we'll talk a lot about microaggressions too in a few minutes. But as a result of the stress that I experienced, I actually ended up in the hospital for a week. And I had gone to the person initially, and I expressed my concerns, and I didn't get anywhere there. So I went to that person's superior, and it only got worse. There was retaliation because then that person's superior went back and told that person. And so I ended up leaving the position. It was not a good situation. So I've experienced it. So it does happen. And many of you probably have stories as well. And, you know, if you are bullied as a child too, the statistics show that it does carry throughout your lifetime. That's something that you really don't forget about. It affects you in many ways. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Moore.
If I ever design a dental school, and I'm not going to, there'll be no middle seats. There'll only be back seats. And I was a backseat person, so I own it properly. So everybody in these presentations says, you know, put away your cell phones and mute them and, you know, put them in the toilet and stuff. I want you to take your phones out, and we're going to do some real-time polling. So this will be fun. It's anonymous. No one's going to know you did it. I don't know any of you. Well, I know a couple of you. I don't know you, so I can't tell. And so take out your phone. And to set this up, if you take out your phone and this is the instruction, you're going to send a message to 22333, and the message you're going to send is Frederick, and the capitalization means nothing. Frederick, F-R-E-D-E-R-I-C-K, Moore, M-O-R, 270. Frederick Moore 270. And you're going to send that to 22333, and then you're going to get back a message that you've joined Frederick Moore's session. How lucky you are. Okay, so go ahead and do that. We can go through this pretty quickly, so this will be fun. I'm not going to bully you, I promise. Okay, are we making progress? If you want to see a room empty out, you say, do you have any questions? Or you're talking about addiction or ethics. That'll empty the room out. Okay, so you should have sent a message to Frederick Moore 270 to 22333, and you should have received back a message during the session. So I'm hoping you've done that. And the first thing I'm going to do is going to ask you to, what one word best defines bullying? So there's one word. You know, whatever, I don't want to bias you. So just put your word in, and we're going to start seeing these appear. We're going to build a word cloud. I wish there were a few more people, but that's okay. We'll all have fun doing this. Okay, aggression, hate, sad, aggression, disdain, intimidate, spelled right too. You guys are great. In New York City, it would not be spelled right, I can guarantee you. Mean. You can do this as many times as you wish, by the way, so don't feel, if you text something and if you think it's better, just do it, okay? Mean, intimidate, good, this is good. We're gonna do this for just another minute, then we're gonna stop. You're really encompassing this very nicely. So let's take like 10 seconds. Mean, sad, power. Yeah, intimidate. Totally great. Okay, so let's stop. We've also been invited to do a webinar for ADIA in June, and I'll probably will use this because you really have captured very nicely a lot of the elements of bullying. So thank you for doing that. microaggressions are really interesting. 10 years ago, I never heard the term microaggression. I realized that I've committed, and these are kind of like, they're inadvertent. And the impact on the other person is that it recalls a whole constellation of trauma. Just to have a couple of examples, it's okay that you're gay. So I'm a gay man, I'm an openly gay man, and when I come out to people, a very frequent response is, oh, that's okay. Like somehow, like they're giving me permission to be who I am. I'm also left-handed. If you haven't noticed, I'm hair challenged. I'm very envious of people who have hair. I will never be able to have one of those long ponytails that people like, these girls or women, excuse me, like twirl around, and then it ends up as this thing on the top of their head with something stuck through it. I would die to be able to do that. Never will. I remember someone coming to ask for some tutoring in math, and he was Asian. He is still, I'm sure he is. Asian, and he was very apologetic. He said, I know we're supposed to be good at math. And he wasn't. He was reflecting a stereotype. One of my favorites is, you're strong for a girl. It's like, oh yeah, you're strong for a girl. That's a microaggression. It denies the possibility, possibly, that women can be strong. And I have two daughters. I raised two daughters, and my youngest daughter is, I kind of like a dyed-in-the-wool do-it-yourselfer, being a good Midwest boy. And she's picked that up. And I remember early in the marriage, I said to her husband, let's go to the hardware store and buy some tool. And he said, well, don't take me, take care of my daughter. She's much better than I am. So we went to the hardware store and had a great time. So bullying. Bullying is the repeated actions or threats of action directed toward a person by one or more people who have or perceive to have more power or status than their target in order to cause fear, distress, or harm. And you saw that in your word cloud. Bullying can be physical, verbal, psychological, or a combination of these three. Bullying behaviors can include name-calling, obscene gesturing, malicious teasing, rumors, slander, social exclusion, damaging a person's belongings, threats, and physical violence. And cyberbullying and name-calling are ones that I'm going to let you read that, are also examples of bullying. Adult bullying. So I'm sure in this room there's probably a narcissist or two. A narcissist is a self-centered, does not share empathy, with others, and has little anxiety about the consequences. I'm sure you know someone whose only concern is themselves. If you talk to them about something that's going on in your life, they will acknowledge that there's something going on in your life, but they'll respond with the same thing going on in their life, but it's much worse and has much more impact. Impulsive adult bullying. So, we've been doing this research for a while, and I must say that sometimes when you do this research, you find out things about yourself. And I have been an impulsive adult bully. More spontaneous bullying may be unintentional or occurs when the bully is upset or concerned about something connected with the victim. So I was an academic dean for 10 years at NYU. If you don't know anything about NYU, it's a very large, diverse place. New Yorkers tend to say what's on their mind without being particularly apologetic about it. Midwest people have the same kinds of feelings, they don't say them out loud, they say nicer things. So as a New Yorker, as a transplanted New Yorker, I would find, especially with large groups of faculty or student as an academic dean, needing to get my way. And sometimes the last tool I had in the basket was like trying to force my way through. So impulsive adult bullies, physical bully. I think that's probably the most common stereotype of the bully is the schoolyard bully who takes the lunch money. Verbal adult bullying. I think that as we get older, I think the things that we see are more connected with our words and actions, and words and gossips and gossiping and rumors can be really damaging. then the secondary adult bully is the one who kind of like joins in after the fact. And we've seen this in some fairly high-profile hate crime incidents where people have like come forth and said they took part in it. That's not how they felt. They took part in it because they were afraid not to. This makes a slide that Toni reinforces the comment that Toni made before. It's common and it occurs in all kinds of situations. Most of the dialogue as we hear about is in the K-12, but it happens in college and it happens in professional school. So incivility, one of my favorite presentations I do is about civility, and civility is something that I really care a lot about. We see a lot of incivility. We see it at all levels of society. I'm sure that you experience incivility in your lives here at UIC. I'm not going to go over this whole thing. I want to point out that demonstrations of temper, procrastinating to avoid fixing relationships or chasms. You know that something bad is going on, and everybody knows that something bad is going on, and you recognize that the people who should be fixing it aren't doing anything. And it's a very frustrating situation. Avoid taking a stand to correct a wrong. So my professional career has been dedicated, in part after my pediatric dentistry life, to ethics and professionalism. So I do a lot of facilitation around ethics and professionalism. And you know, we sit in the classroom and we talk about ethical issues and what we should do, and they're very easy to solve in a classroom, or even if you write an essay about them. And then we walk into real life and things change. Many of us are challenged to take a stand when we see something wrong. Then using ineffective strategies to correct problems and inadvertently causing more problems. I'm not going to go into that. That's really one that's very common. Examples of these are manipulation, intimidation, breaking confidence. So I'm a person who, for whatever reason, values confidence. If someone tells me something and says, don't tell anyone, they can be rock solid guaranteed that I will not tell anyone. Other people, you tell them a confidence. It's like, you know, if I tell Mary something, she's going to tell the world. I hope there's no one in here named Mary. If there is, it's not you I'm talking about. Excluding, marginalizing, silencing, patronizing, scapegoating. If you've ever been the object of these kinds of behaviors, they are very damaging. They don't leave bruises, but they're very, very damaging. Some of these encompass work-related things. I'm going to skip over that. So the impact is eroding self-confidence, self-esteem, not correcting false information. You know, I don't know about you, but in my lifetime, if you look closely, or not even closely, I am old. I've been around for a while. I never heard the term fake news 10 years ago. I grew up in an era where I checked information. I still read several newspapers a day, so that I get different perspectives on the same thing. But I never had occasion where when someone doesn't like something that they've been told is a fact, that the response is that it's fake. That's a really interesting thing that we're dealing with these days. And I'm not trying to dabble in politics, and I respect your politics, and I hope you respect mine. Ignoring and shunning when recognition is indicated. And I'm going to skip the rest of these because they deal with more workplace issues. So let's go back to another real-time polling question. And the question is, have you ever been a victim of bullying in any form? So I've given you kind of this large array of examples. So A, never. B, a few times. C, many. So you text A, B, or C. Give you just a few more seconds to do this. Isn't this interesting? So far, no one has said never. Okay, so let's stop there. We're going to have some other opportunities going ahead. But clearly, most of you have been bullied many times in your experience. I think that's really interesting. I was going to predict something a little bit different from that. It's really fascinating. Thank you for that. The next one is, do you support a zero tolerance policy about bullying? Now, a zero tolerance policy means that if you are accused or if you're convicted of bullying, you can lose your job. You can lose your status, whatever that happens to be. Little race there between the yes and no. I like that. This is the worst possible response in your life. Thank you very much. I know you planned this beforehand, just to see how I would react. Okay, but here's my honest reaction. My honest reaction is that I'm really not sure. I worked for a dean at NYU for a while who claimed that we had a zero tolerance policy for cheating. And basically that meant that if you cheated, you were out, you were dismissed. And as a humanist, I am a card-carrying humanist. I won't show you my card, but believe me. It's really difficult to have a zero tolerance policy, because that means there's no room for individual circumstances or compelling issues or fairness, whatever it happens to be. Oh, someone changed their mind. Either I converted you or there's been some latecomers, so I'm going to move on. This is a really tough issue, and don't let me make fun of it. It's a very, very tough issue. And when an institution makes a decision about a zero tolerance policy about anything, it's a very, very tough stand. Okay, if a patient acts out in the clinic, there is a procedure in place to deal with it. So I'm assuming that some of you at least are dental students, and if you're caught in a situation in the clinic with a patient who's misbehaving, you're not stuck there trying to figure out what to do. There is a protocol in place and you will be bailed out. And I must say, if any of you are aspiring private practitioners, this will absolutely happen in your office. You will absolutely have patients, not many I hope, but you'll have a patient who will act out with a receptionist, with a business manager, with an assistant, with a hygienist, and you are the one who's going to have to manage that. It's a very, very challenging situation. Okay, so we're going to stop here. Most of you don't know. And I think this would be something I would encourage you if you're in the clinic. I would encourage you to know. And if you're not in the clinic, know so that if someone tells you an anecdote from the clinic, you'll know what to do. So there's lots of, there have been a number of ways that institutions have responded to this. Essentially, it's recognizing it's a problem, working to identify who might be a bully, encouraging bystanders to report abuse. We're not going to talk a lot about bystanders, but bystanders are a very, very important group. A bystander who does not take action, it can be a very damaging kind of thing. I'm going to quickly go over a couple of slides. I want to get to a case. So institutions like this can respond by doing something called a campus or a cultural audit. They can train employees about preventing bullying. I think part of that prevention is recognizing what it is so that you can label it for what it is when it occurs. Develop a zero tolerance policy and to create a system for remediation. Let's move on to a case. So this case came from NYU. Thank you very much. I'm sharing this with you. This happened a few years ago. So Kim is a D1, so is a first-year dental student. She is naturally inquisitive. She is curious to know more and often asks questions during lecture. Occasionally, a professor may appear frustrated by the questions. After a recent biochemistry class, Kim signs on to check out the class Google group site. There's a new post from someone named High Standard, and the post reads, saying that that any student who continually interrupts biochem lecture with questions should be put in their place. Rude classmates should have more consideration for others. This needs to stop. Now, I don't know about you, it's hard to read inflection in cyberpost, but you have to ignore my inflection to some. Any student who continually interrupts biochem lectures with questions should be put in their place. Rude classmates should have more consideration for others. This needs to stop, and it was posted by someone who is using a pseudonym. So, do you think that this is bullying? Do you think that this is a plea for civility within the class, an issue of civility? Or simply an individual's point of view? Just take a couple more seconds to do this. You can't change your vote once you voted, so you're safe. So you're split between, oops. Okay, so let's stop. You kind of split between an individual point of view and an example of bullying. And a few of you think it's a plea for civility within the class. I think there's support for any one of those to a level. I'm concerned that this is a person who posted something anonymously. And I think the anonymity sways it a bit for me. Now, I'm not saying this is not a quiz. There's no right or wrong answer. If I had voted, I probably would have voted as an example of bullying. I think there was an issue here of trying to intimidate someone to do something without taking ownership or specifying what the behavior was. I think more broadly considering this, I think the professor may have had a role as a professor emeritus now, but as a professor, I've been in the situation where a student is continually asking questions and interrupting the continuity of the lecture. And as a professor, I have a responsibility as an educator to take a stand on that. So let's move on. I didn't move on. Okay, considering this as bullying, so let's assume it is bullying. What do you think is the best choice for action? Now there's 5 choices here. 6 actually. No action. Private messaging from bystanders. So if someone else on the Google group would talk to high standards, hey, listen, this is not appropriate or whatever. Ask for an intervention from student affairs. I just label this as student affairs, as could be any organization within administration. Remove the writer from the class website. Just dismiss the dude or dudette. Take a formal action against the writer. Actually do something formal. Actually go to an honor council if you have one, or some disciplinary board. And then other. We're not going to go into other. Others could be give the person a Medal of Honor for taking stands. Could be any number of things. So let's stop this fairly soon, if you don't mind. So I think many people who encounter bullying as a bystander, and I would suggest that you're all bystanders in this, would probably have some strong feelings about having something be done. That if this is bullying, it's really not appropriate. That members of a class, remember this is a class group, This is not outsiders. This is a class group. Within the class, there should be a level of honesty and candor so that there can be dialogue and conversation about group-related behaviors. And no one wanted to remove the writer from the class website. Okay? Okay. And this is my presentation. Thank you very much. And move on to Herminio.
You know, it's very interesting, many of your responses, because it reminds me, my students, you know, it's like, you Dr. Perez, but the only thing that we want is to change the exam, and they're trying to punish us, you know. And it's very interesting how do we create that perception in certain situations in academia. What I'm going to be doing right now is I'm going to give you like a big picture. I'm going to start with the big pictures and I'm going to take you into something more in detail. For example, this is a report from the leadership for the LEAD fund in 2018, and the LEAD is the Leadership, Equity, Access, and Diversity Fund. And they try to assess the climate in higher education. And look at how interesting it is. They did a survey called the Uncivil Hate Bias Incidents on Campus. And this is what they found, that the percentage indicated in one incident within the past 24 months was in bias incidents 67%, hate speech 34%, uncivility 34%, and hate crime 19%. But look at this other one. Percentage indicating more than one of those incidents within the past 24 months. And the numbers were less, but it's still high. Now, the other thing that I found very interesting is that when they were looking at the individuals that were creating this type of environment, they find out that 6% of the incidents were committed by faculty and staff. 16% were committed by individuals that were coming into that institution as visitors. But 78% were committed by students. That's what's going on in higher education, but what's going on in dental education? Of course, it's very difficult to pinpoint what's going on, but there has been a lot of work in the progress. They have been trying to find out. And in the Journal of Dental Education, you will see multiple topics in those research, like for example, bullying, workplace incivility, students' learning environment distraction, which by the way, this one in here, student learning environment distraction, has been a very, created a lot of drama, because many people think that certain incidents in bullying do not create a negative environment in education. The other one is campus climate, and the other one is social media, which right now it's big. You know, we have a lot of problems with social media. We tell the students multiple times, please be careful with what you put on Facebook, and they don't listen to. Who becomes a bully? Common characteristic is that it's intentional, it's an aggressive behavior, seeks power and control, maybe physical, verbal, or visual, and may be clearly discriminatory, which makes individuals underrepresented for the most part, being the victims of these individuals. Who is the most likely to be bullied? Insecure personality, low peer acceptance, and different in some way, or physically weak. Now, there is another research, because every time that we talk about bullying, we just isolate that incident and we create only that situation is bullying, and we forget about the rest of it. All the different things that are involved within one incident of bullying. Then the question is, what is the impact of bullying? And then the high mark Foundation, which is in Pennsylvania. They have been funding what is called the Always Bullying Program, well, the prevention program, the Always Bullying Prevention Program in the schools in Pennsylvania. And the most recent research, they identified those areas that every incident of bullying is affecting. And this is what I'm going to be presenting right now. There you go. For every act of bullying, look at what happened. It affects the individual, it affects the educational institution, and it affects the society. They find out that every time that they invest $7 in that prevention program, they recover for every student that were saved or prevented to be bullied almost $12 back. As an individual, look at that. It affects the individual, affecting the poor academic performance, the feelings of emotionally drained, aggression and irritability, sleep disturbances, insecurity, and all of that is involved in mental health. Then imagine that every time that we have an incident of bullying, we are affecting the mental health of that individual, then that individual is going to end up going to the doctor, right? Look at the other one, the educational institution. And let me tell you something. The other thing is that an individual that is a victim of bullying, that decide not to continue school and quit school, the probabilities of that person to end up receiving federal support later on in life are higher, affecting the society. In educational institution, look at that, financial. Every time that there is some kind of incident of bullying, everything goes up. Not only legal implications, creation of policies, and also, look at that, the perception of negative climate by others. It's like, for example, if the school, one particular school is being seen as having an incident of cheating, and it became public, then the probabilities that everybody's going to look at that school as a cheating school are higher. I remember, and this is a quick example, I remember based on that in like 2000, the year 2003, no, the year 2004, a particular school was accused of cheaters, and it was all around in the medias. Then guess what? Those students that were looking after graduation for a job, they were having problems to get a job. Why? Because they were saying, you know, oh, you're coming from that school that there's a bunch of cheaters. Look at this one. Society. Financial investment on bullying preventions. Increased risk of suicide cases among young individuals. Right now there is a school, the Florida state is trying to pass a bill for giving funds to families that are being affected by bullying. And what they're trying to do is to give to those students approximately $6,800 for them to have the opportunity to go to another school, mostly private. What is the problem with that? Do you think that they are really attacking the problem? Then as you see, that research was very interesting because once again, it takes the actual incident of bullying and it put it into practice. What's going on? What is the impact? It impacts the individual, it impacts the educational institution, and it impacts the society. as an administrators in dental school, we have challenges. And those are the challenges that we have. We have challenges on how it's going to be the due process, how we're going to create, and this one is a little bit difficult. Something so intangible as a humanistic environment. How are we going to create a humanistic environment to make the students to understand that you are not supposed to be doing that? Behavior and response impacted by federal, state, local law, and regulatory environment. Lasting impact on health and wellness for students, faculty, and staff. But more in particular, we have other challenges. In my role as a director of student affairs, that I'm always in contact with the students, I have some challenges, and my challenges are those ones. Oh, Perez, I don't want my name to be involved. I want to talk about it, but I don't want my name to be in there. Or, I'm afraid that he or she will do something against me. Or, I don't want to be seen as a troublemaker. And guess what? If those students do not come forward, we cannot do nothing. We cannot even start the cycle. We cannot start an investigation. And look at this one. This is very serious. Lack of documentation. I don't know how many faculty are in here, but if, for example, a student is coming to you and they're saying, I am a victim of bullying, the first thing that I have to tell you, and I learned that, is to open my computer and I said, give me 1 second. I'm going to start taking notes. And probably my students are going to say, oh my God, Dr. Perez is crazy. I think that at this point I can type like 100 words per minute. Because every time that I have a conversation with the students, I'm like, taking notes. And I'm taking notes because I want to be sure that whatever that they're telling me, I can represent the later on accurately. And at the end of the day, if there is an illegal implication, the only thing that you have is your notes. And the other thing is lack of confidence in administrative actions. Dr. Perez, I would like to do something, but I don't think that the school is going to do something for me. But you know what? Part of this presentation is to provide you with some kind of tools. And there is something called, I call it the RAS, R-A-S. And the first R is recognize. And look at that. Can be implemented institutionally, or it can be implemented by the individual. For the most part, when we are going to work into any institution, we just start working in there and we don't know nothing else, just that we are working there. But you can take a little bit of a step forward and you can be familiarized with the policies and protocols. So you know what's going on. I know that at Rutgers University has a policy on bullying and harassment. I know that Rutgers School of Dental Medicine have a process for any of those situations. Then be familiar with those ones. Have a reporting system in place. When you have a situation like that, not only be familiar, but also provide the students or provide to that other individual ways to report the incident. And the other thing that the institution can do is to widely communicate inclusion. The other one is address. When the situation happened, what you can do is you follow your institutional policy. And then from there, you go with a preliminary investigation. And once again, take notes, take notes, take notes, and take notes. Fill with facts. And then you have an interim action. And this one speaks volume of the institution, about the institution. And it will bring the trust of the action to the students. Then, when that situation, if it happens again, then what is going to happen is that the student is going to come to me and is going to say, "So Perez, you know what? I'm telling you this because I know that you guys are going to do something and they're going to protect me." Did that make sense? Yeah? Okay. And the last one is stop. You have the incident, and this is a way to stop situations like that. You have the incident, you create, or you develop, or you reactivate training for professional development. You can denounce the actual situation and then continue to work on your climate in the institution. I'm going to give an example. Harassment incident. We know that there was a situation involving harassment. Then my role in the student affairs is to give the students all the tools that they need to feel safe. And I do it in written. It's not that I'm going to talk to the student, I'm going to say, "You know what? You're safe here in the school." No. I'm going to send an email to that student with all the details. Not only that you feel safe, but if you need to report it to me or anonymous, then you have the link in there to do it. Then the other thing is that, man, then I realized that we have a little bit of a problem with harassment. Then you know what? I'm going to bring the people from Title IX to the school. And I'm going to gather the faculty and some students too. And I'm going to start creating my campaign, Title IX. That's a training. And then, for example, you are my students and the faculty, and then we are doing the presentation on harassment. Then I'm going to say, "You know what? We are having some situations here in the school. And the situations that we have, and this is the reason why we are doing this presentation." And that's when at least I continue working with the inclusiveness and trying to make a safe space for everyone. Any questions? Yes.
What the reading suggests bullying or the bully has a mental health problem, or to address it as a mental health problem. How would you suggest approaching it as a mental health problem in an academic setting, in the college dentistry?
For example, if I have a student, I'm going to give you an example. I have a student comes to me and says, "Dr. Perez, this person is bullying me. Look at what it's telling about me. Look at what he posted on different social media. Look at the pictures of whatever that they're sending me on my text." Then I have to be very frank. My first question is going to be, how it's affecting you? Tell me how it's affecting you. Because I can give you all the tools that I have in here. I can send you to UHBC, that is the behavioral department, and I can say, "You know what? In there, I have a person that can," because the reality is that I am not a psychologist, and I tell them like that. But I can help you to get what you need.
Well, I'm focusing more on the bully and not the target.
Repeat that again, I'm sorry?
The bully.
Oh, the person that is doing that.
Right.
Whoa. That is, you have to work on that very carefully. Because we are working with a person that probably doesn't perceive it. They don't have an idea what they're doing. Sometimes, I remember at some point that I had a situation in which a student was posting things on Facebook. Really strong. And you know that person was doing that because of political reasons. But they didn't understand the impact that it was creating on the class. So big that I had like 10 students in my room one day. Then I have to get that person to the room and I said, listen, and actually all those individuals showed me the pictures, they took like the screenshots, they sent it to me. So those are the facts. And then I have to sit with that student and I say, you know what? This is what's going on. Tell me if you were the person who did this. And let me tell you something, I have to do it with somebody else. I would never meet with a student alone in situations like that. I was taking my notes. And then I said to the student, this is what's going on. Are those your posts? Yes, Perez, those are mine. Okay. You know that the policy in the dental school says that if you are disturbing the academic environment and not making the area, the environment safe, can be a reason for expulsion from the school. And then the student got out. I said, well, yes. Then, what would you like to do? You tell me. Because you are affecting a bunch of students. The students are not doing, believe me, your classmates are not comfortable with you right now. And I was taking notes. And then, of course, the dean has to know about the situation because I don't want a situation that's going at home, not that person to know. Then she needs to know. In my case, it's a female. She needs to know. And then we create sanctions for that situation. Sanctions like what? The student, number one, had to remove everything that it was on Facebook. And he needs to show it. Number two, he was to write a letter of apology to the whole entire class and present it in front of the class. Have to do it. Then, in situations like that, you have to talk to the student. In my case, I don't want to say that I know the students 100% because you never know anybody. But the thing is that you have also the legal department that can help you to craft that conversation. Any other questions? Yes?
Can you help elaborate some distinctions between cyber shaming and cyber bullying? What your perceptions of those might be?
Cool. It's a very thin line, right?
So,
Very thin.
yeah, I think this is a really interesting question. I think that, I think that the intention of bullying is to hurt someone. And I think that Herminio's very sensitive response to the last question was also, was a very sensitive response to the question. I think there are some instances. So bullying is not like it's not like having a cold. Like it's not like one thing. It's a whole range of things. I've been involved in two incidents where the bully was physical. And in that situation, there was a need to actually remove the person from the institution. Like, boom, suspended. Because it was a physical threat to a group that he perceived as inferior to him. There were some nationalistic things, whatever. But the point is that in a severe case, the bully simply may need to be removed. And I think that Herminio described very nicely a situation where a bully needed to be re-educated or made to understand the impact of her or his actions. And that's a very different kind of situation. Those are like the two extremes. I think that, one of the things the internet has done is that it's given a platform for the introverts of the world like me to be able to have a voice. There are extroverts, in my opinion, who will say anything they want in any venue that exists. And some of us don't have the strength to do that. And yet you can sit down in front of your computer and you can say it all. A few years ago in my ethics class, we talked about a case in the class where the class president, who was a very religious person, decided to become the moral center of the class and began to make this fairly elaborate moral analyses of events in the class. And he was the class president and felt very strongly about what he was doing. That's another kind of tough case. So, you know, in some cases it's behavioral and it can be dealt with by re-education and sensitivity, and sometimes it can be a situation where an insensitive person can be trained, if you can, to be empathetic. And in some cases, there's a real physical danger that needs to be dealt with aggressively and a person needs to be removed.
I have a question, if I may.
Yeah, we're about out of time, right? But go ahead.
Sorry. So we keep referencing students to student bullying, but there's no discussion regarding faculty bullying the student.
Right.
How is that addressed in your institutions? How do you go about addressing that? Dr. Perez, I know that there's policies for students. We all have policies. What policies are there for faculty?
Yeah. Okay, that's very interesting because the same policy that I was mentioning, we have Rutgers University policies and we have the school policies, you know, the Rutgers School of Dental Medicine. Then what we do is that each one of them are really well delineated. In a case like that, the Rutgers policy, it says what you have to do for students, what you have to do if it's a faculty, what you have to do if it's a staff. And it tells you 1, 2, 3 what you have to do. If it's a faculty, then they're going to tell you have to report it to this number, you have to collect all this data, this is what you need to do, and these are the possible sanctions. And then the school has to follow that. And then the school has to the office, in our case, to the office of the COO, they have to start the investigation.
So it's reported outside of your college.
It is outside of the
First.
college, and then they receive a report.
So there's no internal reporting of it. It involves a faculty.
Only if the student is coming to me and saying, Dr. Perez, I'm being bullied by a faculty. I'm being bullied by a faculty, what I need to do. Then I send that email saying to the student, these are the steps that you need
These
to
are
follow.
your resources. This is what you
Exactly.
should do.
And then one of the resources in there is that an online resource for that student to submit the complaint. Now, and I said to the student, once you're doing that, you have to be sure that you want to do it. Because the thing is that I need you to represent yourself. At some point, legal department at Rutgers would like to speak to you to start that investigation. I don't want that after you report it and you're saying, oh, you know, no, you have to.
Yeah.
Because at the moment that you're saying, I'm not going to do it, the cycle will continue. It's going to be the same over and over, and this year was you, and the following year is going to be another student. Yeah? Yeah.
Could I just add on? What
Yes,
you
of
said?
course.
At NYU, we actually avoided going broadly into employment issues because of we had a truncated presentation. In our full presentation, we will be addressing that. NYU, most of the clinical faculty are part-time faculty and they have contracts. And a faculty who is not appropriate with the student, the contracts get terminated. Now, you would think that we have a lovely atmosphere and everything is wonderful. That's not necessarily the case. I've done some education with clinical faculty, critical incident type things where we play things back. Sometimes it's interesting that I've had students come to me and say that Dr. So-and-so yelled at me, and when you kind of like parse down into that, I said, well, what does that mean, yelling? Like he raised his voice and he shouted at you? No, no, no. And it came out that he didn't like the manner of what he said, which is a different kind of issue. So there's a perceptual thing. The first 3 years of my academic career as an assistant professor, I was bullied by my department chairman. I mean, bullied by my department chairman. He was a tyrant, and nothing would do that I did anything other than what he said I must do. And it was a really upsetting situation to be in. So I've experienced that, firsthand, which is a different kind of issue. Do we have time?
We have till 1:30, but you can take.
Okay, good, yeah.
There's no class in here, so.
Yeah, one more question. So when a student decide to approach a faculty and tell them about how they feel, they may not be aware that they are being bullied. It might be a conflict only, or it might be an actual bullying, so they just want to talk. So if me, the faculty, start wanting to report and start typing as they speak, they don't feel any safe anymore to come and talk to me. So, and it may be just, what do you think is that, is that something I should worry about? They may not be sure that it's an actual bullying. As you know, when somebody is in the situation, they might be foggy, they may not be sure what's going on. So they want some guidance. So if I start typing, I kind of disrupt that safe environment I'm creating for them to come and talk to me.
Yes, and I totally agree with you. Yes. But you know what? It's not that I'm going to open it up and I'm going to start typing. I will tell them the reason why I believe that. And whatever that I type in there, I tell them, it will proceed if you want me to. If not, it will say that I want to do it. But the only way that I can present and I can represent what you're telling me right now is having an actual documentation of what we were doing.
Can that be done later after they leave? Can that be done because when you're with them, you want to give them your full attention.
I gave them my full attention, but you know what? This is me. No. Because sometimes in the conversation there are certain keys, there are certain words that you're not going to remember later on. Believe me. There are some situations that the students are telling me, this is the way that I feel. This is the thing that person is telling me. Then I'm not going to remember that an hour later. Then I said, tell me, how do you feel? This is the way that I feel. Okay, this is the way that you're telling me that you feel. Something really simple, like for example, student have to remediate. This is really simple. Student have to remediate. Or probably the student failed a course. Dr. Perez, what is the process? Because I failed physiology. Well, you failed physiology. We have to wait until the Student Academic Performance Committee get together, evaluate the grades, and they're the one who decide if you're going to be remediated. Probably an hour later. Dr. Perez, what is the process again? Because you told me 1, 2, 3. And I said, no. I told you this is the process. And then I documented and I sent them an email. As much as I like my students and I've been there to work with them, they find ways to navigate the system. And it is true.
I like that approach. I'm slightly different. I'm a listener, and I'm not a typer. I can't type 100 words in a minute. I can do okay, but not 100. And I feel, it's just my own way of the world. I do feel that talking over the top of a computer, for me, is off-putting. So if someone comes to me, I would, like you described, I would probably be a listener processor first, and at the end of the conversation, or I'm sorry, at the beginning of the conversation, I ask the person, what would you like me to do for you? Do you want me to listen to you? Do you want to have a partner to do something? Do you want some coaching? What would you like from me? And sometimes they say, well, I just want you to listen. And I do. And by the end of the listening, I understand that they actually want coaching. And they want to go a step farther. And so I'll transfer that note, and that's when I'll probably take notes, but it's a stylistic thing. And I'm sure that Toni does it a different way too.
I take notes. I have this trusty little notebook, and when students come and sit with me, I just take notes as we're going along, and it's not a distraction.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's different styles, it all works. Maybe one last question, if anyone has one, and we'll let you go and find a little pizza. You guys have been a very wonderful and attentive audience. It's been nice of you to let us rehearse our program with you, and thank you for that. And thank you for being here.